Hi everyone, it's Becky from Appalachian Ideas. Welcome! Welcome to my video. If you like what you see, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Okay, I read an interesting article today. This is about Prince Harry and his memoir that he's going to write. To me, this is a high virtue English tale, and we'll talk about that later. Okay, I found this article on Good to Know, and the address is goodto.com/royal-news/ and the Queen is most worried about Duchess Camilla ahead of Prince Harry's bombshell memoir. That's the title of the page. And then 611227. I'm sure if you plug any of these words in a search engine, the story will come up for you to read if you want to read more about it. Okay. This is written by Selena Maycock on July the 30th, 2021 at 4:34 p.m. So the article is a few days old, but it's not that far away. The Queen is said to be most worried about Duchess Camilla ahead of Prince Harry releasing his bombshell memoir. The Queen is understood to be most worried about her daughter-in-law, Duchess Camilla, ahead of Prince Harry, her grandson's bombshell memoir release. Her Majesty is claimed to be the only royal who can fix the royal rift, but it might even be out of her control. The royal news comes after Prince Harry's dig at nannies used by Prince William and Kate Middleton were revealed. This is all a big family mess, but it happens to involve the royal family. The Queen is said to be most worried about Duchess Camilla when it comes to the upcoming release of Prince Harry's explosive memoir. Prince Harry has reportedly signed a four-part book deal with Penguin Random House to publish a memoir about his childhood and growing up in the royal family, whilst also covering his relationship with his wife Meghan Markle and the events leading up to Brexit. But while Harry denies a second book following the eventual passing of his grandmother, many fans can't wait for the first book to hit the shelves. There are some members of the royal family who are concerned about its contents. And while Prince Charles and Prince William are expected to be included in the book, the monarch is most fearful about what might be said about Duchess Camilla. For not only is she the future queen, but she also publicly revealed as being the third person in Princess Diana's marriage to Prince Charles, and it's claimed that Prince Harry has never been close to her. According to the Daily Mail, a royal source said, "Let's be honest, Harry has never been close to the Duchess of Cornwall. If he documents their fraught relationship in the book, it could be very damaging at a time when Charles is laying the groundwork for her to become queen." There is, however, panic behind closed doors. Clarence House is said to be worried about what the memoir could mean for Camilla. It comes after Prince Harry was warned that he could end up repaying Prince Charles a substantial sum if the tell-all book reveals too much about the royals. In a statement about the book, Harry teased, "I've worn many hats over the years, both literally and figuratively. And my hope is that in telling this story, the highs and the lows, the mistakes and lessons learned, I can help show that no matter where we come from, we have more in common than we think." He added, "I'm deeply grateful for the opportunity to share what I've learned over the course of my life so far, and excited for people to read a first-hand account of my life that's accurate and wholly truthful." Prince Harry's memoir, which he's been secretly working on over the past year, is expected to be released in late 2022. Now, a little about the book deal. It was a $20 million book deal with Penguin Random House for 4 books. Okay. Now, all this reminds me of high virtue English tales, high character tales. I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. The first one that comes to mind is Mordred. King Arthur's son, with his sister Morgause. Now, in the history of the kings of Britain, of course, it's written in Latin, Historia Regum Britannia, originally called On the Deeds of Britons. It's a pseudo-historical account of British history, and it was written about 1136 by Geoffrey of Monmouth, and it chronicles the lives of the kings of Britain over the course of 2,000 years, beginning with the Trojans founding the British nation, and continuing until the Anglo-Saxons assumed control around Britain around the 7th century. It is one of the central pieces of Matter of Britain tale. Let me back up here. It is one of the central pieces of the Matter of Britain. The tale was written about 1136 by Geoffrey of Monmouth. Monmouth. Okay. Now the idea here, Arthur, this was an incestuous relationship. A son was born from their union. So what the British is saying, of course, Arthur was killed on the battlefield by his son Mordred. So what the message was is, don't do this. Don't have an incestuous relationship. And the English were so terrified by this act, by the thought of this act, that Mordred eventually evolved into the word murder. Okay. Now, originally, the name Mordred was found in as the Latinized Mordredus, used in Geoffrey of Monmouth's History of the Kings of Britain. And it comes from an old Welsh word, medrot, let's see if I can pronounce this, comparable to Old Cornish modred and Old Breton modrot. It is ultimately derived from the Latin moderus, meaning within bounds, observing moderation, and moderate. And it's very interesting that that word evolved to signify and describe an act that's far from moderate and far from within bounds. It comes to describe murder, okay, which is an extreme, impulsive, violent action. Okay, now the source for this is Wikipedia. I always go to Wikipedia to find little things out. It's a jump board for me, a springboard. And then the source that they list is, of course, the History of Kings of Britain. And another article came up that I thought was cute. You see, Camilla was the mistress. Prince Charles and Diana were married and had 2 boys, William and Harry. But the marriage fell apart, and she was the mistress. Okay, but this one story caught my eye, and this was so fun. I remember reading this back in the 1990s. It was before Diana tragically died, and Diana fans came across Camilla in a grocery store, and they started pelting her with biscuits and rolls. I thought that was just an interesting story. That was just so British, just so different. Okay, and something else I wanted to mention, Diana touched so many people with her philosophies and her charitable work. And when Diana died, there was a huge outpouring of grief. It even shocked the castle. There was 60 million flowers were left in front of the castle. I myself cried. I was her age, I was a single parent. Okay, now let's go on to what the monarchy is all about. The divine right of kings is associated with monarchy. Divine right of kings, or God's mandate, is a political and religious doctrine of political legitimacy of a monarchy. It stems from a specific metaphysical framework in which a monarch is, before birth, preordained to inherit the crown. According to this theory of political legitimacy, the subjects of the crown have actively and not merely passively turned over the metaphysical selection of the king's soul, which will inhabit the body and rule them. Okay. Now, I wanted to mention this in regard to this memoir and this covering of Camilla, who's going to be the future queen. and Prince Charles will be the future king. Okay, since Elizabeth said this in the article, I think she recognizes that it's out of her hands. Whatever is going to happen, it's just out of her hands. Throughout history, when things have happened to the English monarchy, the public has just stood back and watched it all and knew that it was some higher being at work. I also wanted to mention about Camilla. Now, I don't know Camilla, but I did go through the same thing where a family was broken. And she should have thought before she broke up the family with 2 small children that one of those boys might grow up and write a book someday. So it's just karma. But the fact that she's going to be queen and Charles is going to be king, this book will bring these deeds back into everyone's memory. And should there be a king on the throne, should there be a queen consort that acted this way, I think Charles could probably be forgiven because we've known of him forever, it seems like. He was always around when I was growing up. Of course, I'd see him on TV and in the news. No, I didn't live down the street or anything like that. But Camilla is, I don't want to call her a newcomer because she's been there for years, but she's not royal. And that makes a huge difference. So it may be, this is my opinion, that they may accept Charles, but won't accept Camilla once this comes out. And I will say that Prince Harry has every right to write this book. He's a child. And I'm a teacher, and a child that goes through a traumatic event like that. I mean, first his parents' marriage breaks up, and then his mother dies. I mean, wow. He has a right to write that book. Okay, and I loved Princess Diana. She had such a wonderful message. Okay, and that's about all I have for you today. I wanted to just show how I thought this was a high character, high virtue English story in the making. Almost historical, and I bet it will be historical. The outcry from Diana's death, there were 1 million people across the world that watched her funeral on TV. Like I said, there were 60 million flowers. It was just a huge outpouring of grief. And I'm sure Diana will go down in history as being remembered and loved. Okay, so I'm not sure what is going to happen here with the Camilla story, but I believe it's going to be significant. The reaction from the public, I believe, will be significant. And we have been seeing people just turning on Prince Harry. Well, Meghan Markle, I don't approve of her tactics. And I don't approve that Prince Harry has said what he has said against the royal family because his grandmother is 95 years old. But in light of Camilla and all this in his background, that brings in another factor. I don't feel as opposed to him as I did before. When I read this, I thought, oh, well, that is karma, and he does have the right to write that book. And Camilla needs to face her accusers, or her victims. In this case, there were 2 little boys. Okay, and that's all I have for you today. That's all I have to say. And thank you for being here. And if you like what you've heard, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And thank you very much, and I'll see you later on. Bye.